My house was my trophy, suffered through years of hard work. I painted the walls, laid the floor, repaired the roof myself, investing every penny and a sleepless night. It wasn't just a place to live. It was my fortress, proof that I could do it without anyone else's help. Before my month-long business trip, I entrusted the keys to Uncle Gerald, a family loser who was always complaining about the unfair world. "Stay the night if you get pinned down," I said, expecting him not to cause havoc. But when I returned, I found a new lock, a missing coffee machine, and Gerald in my bathrobe, walking around like the owner. The neighbors whispered. He boasted that I had passed on he had a house, hosted parties and brought a woman with children. I found out the truth. He submitted false documents to the municipality, forging my signature in order to steal my house. The loop on the letter D in the note gave him away, but he thought I wouldn't notice. He made a mistake, and his game has just begun. My house was my everything. It's small with peeling paint on the porch, but mine is from the foundation to the attic. I took him out on a mortgage when everyone said, "You can't afford it." I worked 2 jobs, gave up bars and traveling to pay every cent. I painted the walls in the living room myself until the paint got into the skin. He mowed the bedroom floor, cursing every nail. I was fixing the roof with my neighbor Bob, who brought beer and joked that I was building a fortress. We put the stove on together, for pizza and old rock, laughing until we cried. This house wasn't just walls, it was my victory, my I could. I looked at him and knew. This is mine, suffered honest. But I didn't take into account that honesty is not for everyone. Gerald, my mom's brother, was the family's black box. Always in debt, always on the run. Sometimes he lived with another girlfriend. Sometimes he rented a corner from dubious acquaintances. Then he disappeared until he needed money. At family dinners, he gushed like a nightingale. The world is against me, but I'm not giving up. Mom felt sorry for him, Dad rolled his eyes, and I kept my distance. Gerald was a master of promises, to repay a debt, to improve his life, to get back on his feet. But his feet always led to another pit. Years ago, he borrowed a couple $100 from me for an urgent car repair. I didn't see any money or gratitude. When he called before my business trip, I already knew what I would hear. "Plemiash, I'm broke. I lost my apartment, the girl kicked me out. Can I stay with you for a couple of nights?" I sighed. "Okay, spend the night. But no guests, no mess. The windows are mine, the water is mine, I'm not on vacation." He hugged me as he took the keys, muttering, "You're my savior." His eyes were shining, and I thought, sentimentality. What a fool I was. The business trip was hell, meetings, reports, nights without sleep. I dreamed of a house, of my couch, of coffee from my car, which I chose for 6 months. When I returned, I put the key in the lock and froze. The key wouldn't turn. The castle was new, alien, like a mockery. I rang the doorbell and knocked, feeling anxiety constrict my throat. Finally, Gerald came around the corner of the house. In my blue robe, with my mug, with a smile that made me want to punch. "Oh, you're back? Wow," he drawled, as if I had broken into his mansion. I clenched my fists. "Why is the lock changed?" He shrugged his shoulders as if nothing had happened. "Yes, it was stuck, I fixed it. Don't get all worked up, it's okay." His voice was slick like butter, and I felt like a fire was burning inside. I entered the house, and every step was like walking through a minefield. The kitchen is an empty place instead of the coffee machine that I bought with my first big paycheck. The bedroom has a new mattress, cheap, with a smell of plastic. The living room has stains on the carpet, cigarette butts in the corner, empty bottles under the table. I turned to Gerald. "What the hell are you doing here?" He rolled his eyes. "What are you talking about? I lived. Don't be such a bore." His arrogance was like a slap in the face. I went out to Bob, who was smoking on the porch. "Your uncle turned around," he said, shaking his head. "I was having a barbecue, I was calling friends, a woman with 2 children. They almost settled here. He told everyone that the house was his now. Like you handed it over. Went somewhere." I stood there, feeling the blood pounding in my temples. "Did you send it?" It's like I gave him an old t-shirt. I started digging like a detective in a cheap movie. I called a friend who works in the municipality. He checked the records and gave out. Gerald submitted the documents, claiming that I voluntarily handed over. He owns the property. He attached a scan of my passport. A copy was in a box with documents, which I allowed him to keep in the attic. There was an old purchase and sale agreement that I showed him once, and a note supposedly from me. "I'm handing the house over to Gerald, he's the owner now." The signature was almost mine. I looked at the letter D. My loop always goes to the right, but here it bent to the left. It didn't matter to the official. They accepted the papers. I sat there looking at the scans and felt the rage turn to ice. He didn't just live in my house. He tried to steal it by faking my life. I returned to the house where Gerald was still walking around like a king. He was chatting on the phone, laughing, calling someone babe. I looked at him and saw not an uncle, but a thief who hugged me to get closer. I remembered dragging floorboards, arguing with Bob about where to put the stove, and dreaming that this house would be mine forever. Gerald didn't see me as a family, but as a sucker who could be fooled. He thought I'd swallow his fix the lock and leave, but I didn't leave. I thought about my mom who taught me to trust, about Dad who said, family is everything. Gerald was a family in name only. In fact, he was a predator who had sensed a weakness. I didn't tell him what I knew. He didn't show the scans, he didn't scream. I was silent, but inside I was already dialing the lawyer's number. His game was tricky, almost perfect. A fake signature, a fake note, my passport, he thought of everything. But he didn't think me through. I painted these walls, I built this house. I nodded out of a life that didn't give any indulgences. And I won't give it to a man who lies as easily as he drinks my coffee. Gerald thought he had one. But I'm just getting started, and his master of life will soon find out that stealing my house is a ticket to hell that he bought himself. My uncle Gerald tried to steal my house by forging documents and my signature while I was on a business trip. I returned to the new lock, the missing coffee machine, and his cheeky master grin. But I had hidden cameras that recorded everything. How he brags on the phone, burns my papers, rehearses lies. I handed the video over to the police, and when they saw how he was planning to convince everyone that I was crazy, the case started. I anonymously leaked the post to TikTok and the story exploded. Reddit, Facebook, news. Gerald was recognized on the street, and his interview with the Babel, "This is a misunderstanding," became a meme. The court found him guilty. Suspended sentence, compensation, ban on owning real estate. I changed the locks, put new cameras and a sign. The house has been returned to the owner. He asks me to live in the basement, but I don't say anything. He chose deception and I chose the truth, and my peace is worth more than his shame. When I found out that Gerald had filed false documents to steal my house, I didn't scream. I was saving up my strength like a soldier before a battle. I had no connections, no rich lawyer, and no confidence that I wouldn't be considered paranoid. But I had cameras, old, cheap ones, hidden in the corners of the house since the renovation, when I was afraid of theft. I connected them before leaving just in case. And now they have become my weapon. I sat down at my laptop, feeling my heart pounding, and started browsing through the archive. What I saw was worse than I could have imagined. On the recordings, Gerald was like an actor in a cheap thriller. Here he is in my bedroom, putting on my sweater and laughing in the mirror. Now this is my bed, my closet. Here he is chatting on the phone, drinking my beer. Well, I have a house now. Plemiash is gone, stupid, won't even notice. Here he is in the living room, burning my old bills in the fireplace, muttering, "Less evidence." And here's the most disgusting thing. He's standing in front of the mirror, rehearsing. He gave me a house. He said it himself. He said it himself. His voice was trembling, as if he was trying to persuade himself. But the worst part was the video where he calls someone and says, if it starts to occur, let's say he's not himself. You know, stress, nerves, crazy. I clenched my fists so that my nails dug into my palms. He's not just a thief. He wanted to erase me. I copied everything onto a USB stick, made a backup copy, and went to the police. The precinct officer, an elderly man with a tired look, first snorted. Family squabbles? Figure it out for yourself. But I insisted. Watch the video. I plugged in my laptop, and we started. Gerald, bragging about the theft. Gerald, burning documents. Gerald planning to prove that I'm crazy. The precinct officer's face fell. This is no joke anymore, he said, summoning a colleague. They took the flash drive, drew up a protocol and said, hang on, we'll figure it out. I left the police station, feeling the air become lighter. The truth has begun its journey. But I didn't stop at the police. I knew Gerald was a master at getting away with it. He didn't just need punishment, he needed shame. I created an anonymous TikTok account and uploaded a montage of recordings. Gerald in my bathrobe, his bragging, his lie rehearsal. He signed. My uncle stole my house while I was on a business trip. That's how he did it. I didn't expect much, maybe a couple hundred views. But by morning, the video had reached 1 million. The comments exploded. Is this real? What a nasty guy. Someone uploaded a video to Reddit, a sub about scammers. The post hit the top, and the story spread. Facebook groups, Twitter, Even a local news channel picked up with the headline. The man returned from a business trip and found out that he was no longer the owner of the house. I watched the view count grow, and I felt, it's not just revenge. This is justice. People began to recognize Gerald. Neighbor Bob said that he saw how he was surrounded in the supermarket. "Hey, are you the guy who stole the house?" He tried to laugh it off, but people were filming him on their phones. Then he gave an interview to a local newspaper, and it was a show. He babbled into the camera. "This is a misunderstanding. I thought we had a deal. My nephew, he's, unstable." His voice was trembling, his eyes were running. The interview video became a meme. "This is a misunderstanding," they repeated sarcastically in the comments. I watched and thought, you drowned yourself, Gerald. The trial was quick. The prosecutor showed the video documents, a fake note with a fake signature. My lawyer, whom I hired, got into debt and blew Gerald's defense to smithereens. His lawyer tried to delay. My client acted by mistake. But the judge, a woman with a stern look, cut him off. A mistake? He burned the documents and forged the signature. Gerald received a suspended sentence, the obligation to pay me compensation for moral damages, and, the icing on the cake, a lifetime ban on owning real estate in the state. He sat in the hall with his head down, while I looked at him and thought, "Did you want my house? Now you only have a debt." I returned home and changed the locks first thing. I've installed new cameras with face recognition, so that no Gerald can go unnoticed anymore. I put a sign on the fence. The house has been returned to the owner. All sessions are recorded. Bob, seeing it, chuckled. Tough but well-deserved. I restored the kitchen, returned the coffee machine, the same as it was. The new mattress smelled of freedom, not plastic. But peace did not come immediately. I thought about my mother, who died without seeing who her brother had become. About the dad who taught, family is sacred. Gerald was a family, but he chose to lie. And I chose the truth. Now Gerald writes to me on Facebook. "I'm sorry I was wrong. At least let me live in the basement." I don't answer. Not out of spite, but out of principle. He had the chance to be a family, to live in my house as a guest. He chose theft, parties, fake signatures. His misunderstanding cost me my house, my nerves, and my faith in people. But I got mine back. Not only the walls, but also yourself. I'm sitting in the living room drinking coffee, listening to the clock ticking. My house is mine again. And Gerald? He has his shame, his empty pockets, and his "this is a misunderstanding." Karma is not always loud. Sometimes she just puts you in the place where you belong.